There it goes. Okay. Am I crazy? All right. So sorry about that. I was looking through the Cartier application because I wanted to see what they were asking about so we could do the impact statement. The impact statement, what are they asking for? Impact framework. That's what it is. Okay. Hi, Dr. AJ. I think I saw good yeah, I was right. I think I saw what am I saying? I think I saw Sharita. And hi, Sharita. How are you, my dear? All right. So I realized, okay, so when we were going through the impact, we were talking about yesterday when we mentioned the impact framework. I did one like, I want to say 7 years ago now. And it's not as strong as I would want it to be. So last night I went to ChatGPT and I created a couple of narratives using the AI, right? So what I think we'll do is, if this is helpful, because remember, I told you I like AI. I'm actually one of the business that we are planning, the business that we're trying to fund right now, and we're doing all of this funding for is to launch a product that helps integrate AI into certain processes, right? For certain industries. So I'm not against AI at all. I think it's the future. We're here. Learn how to use it or learn how to fix machines. That's where we're at, okay? So, but throw in Google Bard or, yeah, for sure. Google Bard is a good one too. But you know what? Interestingly enough, so I pay for ChatGPT. I have the premium model, and the GPT-4 now allows you to, what am I saying? I'm sorry. I'm gonna be right back. Why? No, probably not because my mouth is dry and I'm having brain fog because I'm hungry. Yeah. No, I've already burned 900 calories and it's new, so my body's depleted. So that's why I was saying let me grab some protein shake. Okay, sorry about that. I realized that my body is a little depleted of nutrients. So grab the protein shake. That's why I'm having a little brain fog and I'm having a little bit of trouble processing. So we're gonna work through this, all right? Excuse me. So, all right. Theories of change, right? Or impact frameworks. So again, AI, right? So I like AI for the fact that we can use it to augment what we already know, okay? If I didn't already have a framework for this information, this would have been useless to me for the most part, or I'd have a lot more navigating to do. And I encourage you to use AI to try to navigate some of this, all right? But GPT-4 actually has a part now where you can, it scans the internet. So it will look and reference the internet. It will give you the sites. It will give you the references. It will help you cite your sources. So definitely useful. And I would say if you're going to use it, then cite your sources or your reference, whoever it is that you're referencing, and double check that it actually gave you the right information, because it is still, they're still working through things, okay? Because there's a couple of things I was just like, yeah, this is not right. But for the most part, it's good use. It's a good tool. And even in you didn't miss very much. And hi, how are you? So even with the theories of change framework, or the theories of change or impact framework that we're going to do today, I took one that I did a couple years ago when I was working in the other business that I told you about, and I just kind of moved a couple pieces around, and I think I'm actually going to update the template for the proposal and include an area that has this framework included as well, right? So let me put that down. Include impact framework in proposal template. So that proposal template is already like 30 pages, and it doesn't even include everything you could possibly put in it. So this is going to be even longer. I'm anticipating maybe like 33, 34 pages in addition, because this is pretty lengthy, right? Including like sample narratives. And even in the like, we outlined the training already. And even in the outline, I'm going to show you how to use ChatGPT to kind of augment some of these things now that you have the background knowledge, so you can make sense of it, okay? So that's why I'm referencing ChatGPT today, just to make sure, just to kind of bring it all home, all right? Any questions before we start? Because this is in reference to the Cartier application that we were doing yesterday. It asks, the question was, describe which gaps in access, outcome, or opportunities you are addressing, and which historically marginalized group or community you work with. Comment on whether the solution you're offering could be replicated in other geographies, right? All right. So now one of the next questions they're asking is, how does your product, service features, how do your product or services features benefit and or relieve the consumer's pain point? All right. Make sure to mention how your vision relates to the social and or environmental impact you are trying to create. And then they ask you right under that for an impact framework. All right. So impact frameworks, just to make it really simple, really like 5-year-old concept, and not 5-year-old because we're not intelligent. And I'd say a lot of disclaimers because people really be like, what are you trying to say? No, what I'm trying to say is, to simplify it and make it as easy to understand as possible, is when you put in an input, right? How can you show a measurable output? That's all they're asking, but they're asking from a business sense, okay? So for example, yesterday, I forgot what her name was. I think it was like S. Patton, and she was talking about, like, she was using words that were not very that were easy to qualify as far as like the inherent meaning of things, and like how we like really feel about them, and we can understand what they mean, but they're very difficult to measure, right? So impact statements, you have to be able to measure. All right. So any questions about that before we start? So I'm just giving you context for why we're doing this, explaining to you where we're going to source our information from, and then we're going to build out a cute narrative with, like, if someone wants to do it with their business, you can walk away with the narrative for this application, or we could use a fake company, and we'll do this using ChatGPT. All right. So how do you guys want to play this? Just joining. Hello. Sorry, real company. Okay, so Sharita is proposing that we use a real company in order to create a ToC, which is theory of change, impact framework. Okay, so my question was, how do you guys want to approach Same, real company. Okay. So we have another vote for using a real company to create a narrative for a theory of change impact statement. Okay. So we got that down. Anyone volunteer, which is my next question, Dr. AJ, to have their business used as the real company that we're going to build out the framework for? What do you guys think? Who wants to volunteer? Because if we're going to use a real company, I'm going to need you guys, one of you guys, to kind of volunteer to do it, because I wouldn't have enough context to use it for another company. You know what I mean? Like I can't do Coca-Cola because I wouldn't know what they're measuring or how they want to measure it. And we have to ask certain questions, and we're going to try to use ChatGPT to get that information. So I need more context within a real situation. So someone volunteer, and let me know who wants to do it. I can't come on, but I can do it. I would prefer if it's someone that can come on, Shari, and I'm sorry because it's gonna be difficult to try to ask questions through text, and it's gonna make it so much longer. And I can do it. Okay, someone got ahead of you, Sharita. So I'm gonna pick the first person, and if we have time, because I'm the baby's not with me for another couple hours. So if we have enough time, I'll do yours as well, Sharita. I don't mind. Okay, so we'll do Baptist. I don't have the option to invite you. So see if you can ask me to join this conversation. Baptiste. Okay. Let me see. See if you can add me, because I remember yesterday I just clicked on Sharita's name and it allowed me to invite, or add as a guest. I don't know if maybe you have to be following me first, or if I have to be following you maybe. Let me see. I can't come on right now. Okay, got you. Okay, so Sharita, it would have to be you then. All right. So I'm gonna add you, Sharita. I'm gonna invite you as a guest.
All right, I volunteer tribute.
Yes, yes, yes. Good morning. How are you? Well, good afternoon
Good
now.
morning. Well, it's
Okay.
still morning for me because I'm on the other side of the country.
Where are you? Why do I forget?
I'm in Arizona.
That's right. Okay. Got you, got you. Okay. So let's go ahead and would you mind showing your face? Your lovely, beautiful, stunning face. Yes, all that.
Really? Like, I feel I haven't gotten up for the day yet. That's why I'm not on camera.
Okay,
But
I just
okay.
wanted to know. If you're willing. I'm not, it's not necessary. If you're willing. Okay.
I still got my bonnet on and everything.
I love it.
Lord.
I just came from the gym and I didn't even shower yet. So if we keeping it funky, let's keep it all the way funky, right? Quite literally. All right. So let's see something. Pack assessment framework. Okay. All right. All right. I can't go on right now. Sorry. It's okay. No problem. There's no there's no problem at all. Don't worry about it, y'all. Don't worry about it. We're chilling. It's Saturday. It's no problem. We're all good. All right. No problem. All right. Let's do this one too. Okay.
Hold on one second. I need to take care of my daughter real quick. So give me 2 minutes.
Take your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. All right. All right. Let's first of all, let's break down what an impact framework is. Okay. So first and foremost, we're going to be looking at it's a way to assess and evaluate um, in a systemic way how to measure whatever that you're doing, and then there's going to be different ways to do that. So we're going to break it down by the different ways that we're going to do that. Okay. So one of the ways is to kind of set a goal and objective. And remember, this is also so for the Cartier. Let's actually pull that up. So for the Cartier question, they're asking impact framework should lay out your company's inputs and activities, outputs and outcomes that contribute to its intended positive social and environmental impact. Okay, so
Okay.
first and foremost, let's outline what your intended positive social or environmental impact is. Okay, so let's start with that. I'm going to put that right at the top for you, and I'll email this to you when we're done, and you can make any changes that you need to. Okay,
Okay.
so how would you state what that is?
Um, I would state that as my social impact would be to help organizations create psychologically safe workplaces for marginalized and underrepresented groups.
Organizations create safe,
Psychologically safe.
psychologically safe. Okay, emphasis on the psychological. Got it. Psychologically safe workspaces for marginalized groups. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so my first question is going to be hold on. This thing, okay. Okay. My first question is going to be how are you? Okay. Sorry. Let me back up a little bit. So, based on the impact framework, it's going to involve 7 components, all right? The first thing I'm going to think about is how are you going to assess that an environment is psychologically safe, right? So, the goal and the objective for you is going to be so one of the elements of the framework is a goal and objective to create you have like a program, or is it a consultancy? Is it something that the business is going to be implementing? Is it like a step by step kind of thing? How does that look?
Well, phase one right now is to help organizations create the framework. Phase two will be that I will have a team that will help them to implement it. So I guess we'll just keep it at phase one, where I would just give them the framework as to how to create the space.
Okay, so you're looking for funding for phase 1 then.
Well, I'm looking for funding to get to phase two.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me see something. Sorry, Shorty, give me 1 second.
I know worries.
How do I do this? Okay. What am I doing? I don't know
So
how to
what's
use
happening?
this. I'm trying to figure something out. Okay, here we go. All right, there we go. I wanted to highlight your face, not mine. Okay, so there we go. All right, so then you're looking for funding to get to phase 2, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's just focus on phase 2 then. Can you reiterate to me what phase 2 is one more time?
So so phase two of the business is um to expand to a team that will be able to train and implement the ERG program management plans that organizations have, because that's one of their other pain points, is that they outside of not having a strategic plan for their employee resource groups, when they get the plan, they are limited in resources, time, and individuals to actually implement the plan. So having consultants that can implement the plan that we create for them in like a 6 month to year time frame, depending on like the actual plan itself and what the client is willing to commit to.
Got you. Okay. So, okay. Okay. So expand to a team, train and implement ERG program and slash plan from phase one.
Hmm.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to get context from phase one. Phase one, after the plan is like outlined for that particular business. Who are the key players that are going to be part of that? Um, who's going to be part of that team that needs to be trained?
So this will typically be the ERG program manager, and that can or cannot be their title. Um, Someone with or someone else in the DEI team or someone within HR. Typically, the role of managing the employee resource groups falls underneath the HR team and or the DEI team, depending on how it's broken out into the organization, if it's separate or if it's underneath HR. But someone within that particular sphere would be the ones that are actually running the ERG program, and then the ERG leaders would need training as well. So the ones that fall underneath the ERG program manager, those would be the ones that would get the training as well.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions coming in. One, Dr. AJ wants to know, what does ERG stand for?
Employee resource groups.
Okay. And then the other question is Jolena. So we're working through the impact statement using Sharita's business as an example, and we're going to work out how to articulate the inputs and outputs of measuring the impact of her business, right? The phase two of your business, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So
my consulting firm focuses on employee resource group strategic planning, with an emphasis of a connection to DEI and organizational business outcomes,
okay, perfect.
just for everybody's reference.
Yeah. And then also, even though we're using Sharita's business, pay attention to the questions that I'm asking her because they're going to pertain to you too, right? The impact statement is a separate document, like a narrative about impact. Yes. So the Cartier application that we did yesterday, they want you to upload something called a theories of change impact framework. And the framework that they put here is they want to know should lay out your company's inputs and activities, outputs and outcomes that contribute to its intended positive social or environmental impact. So they're not just asking you to tell them what the impact is going to be, they're asking you, have you measured what that's going to look like? Okay. So then we're working this out with Sharita's business because we all, well, not we all, but there was a consensus, a general consensus that we wanted to do it with a real business versus a fictitious one. So that's why we're doing it with Sharita's. All right. All right, so training efficient. So, two questions that I'm going to have now based on phase two's outcomes, right? An expanded team that's trained and implementing the program. How do you measure training efficiency? Right, that's going to be the first thing for any one of these individuals, right? So who, it doesn't matter who's doing it, but you may want to, I think you, that's why I remember. Okay. Remember when we spoke and I asked you to break down or pick one person that you want to target? This is kind of where that's going to come into play, right? Because let's say it's the DEI team, you need to be able to now articulate how you're going to measure the DEI team person, how the DEI team individual, manager, trainer, whoever the person is overseeing it, is being efficient. How are we going to measure that? And if you do niche down to one, then that will make it easier for you versus now you might have to create a narrative for all three if you plan on focusing on all three. And all three different, like, oh, well, you were also using a stakeholder too, but all three people will have different interests. So maybe
Yeah,
thinking,
and then I think that's where it gets a little gray because sometimes outside of the CEO, the DEI manager or HR person can be the same people
mm,
because they sometimes they have like that title where they're either over HR and DEI. So sometimes it's not split. So that's why I have the three because one, two can be matched up, but I always try to keep the CEOs pain points and what they're trying to occur or the goals they're trying to have in mind. But ultimately, they are not necessarily people I'm talking to, but I need to make sure when I have my proposals together that I keep their pain points so that when it's being presented, it's an easier yes. But typically, it would either be a DI manager or HR director who sometimes can be the same person.
yeah. Okay, I don't know if you're open to this, but I would say when you're proposing when you're selling this to a DEI team member or HR team member, sell it to it so that they look good to the stakeholder.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Okay. So that you
Hmm.
don't have to worry about them. You just have to make you so you are getting that yes from those two people or that person, right? So for them, for the person um that's implementing this, is there a rubric or some sort
So
of
it's typically based off of the business outcomes that they're looking to address. And that's something that I find out during our discovery call. If they want to focus on either a reduction in talent acquisition costs, increase in diverse talent pool. So it's typically based off of their business outcome goals. And then that's what we'll create the plan towards. And then we'll monitor the plan because I have a 6-month audit service that I offer as well that I'll come back and audit the plan towards the business goals to see how they're measuring to those goals. And then if they don't do that, I still send a survey to see how they're measuring to the goals or still contact them in some way. So it's always connected to their business outcome that they're looking to address or increase or decrease or whatever. So that's how I measure based off of what their business outcome goals are.
okay, that's fine. What are some of the outcomes that they typically express they want to? You could just use some of them, like maybe three examples.
One is an increase in diverse leadership, meaning that most of their leadership executive team and they want to make it more diverse. So I usually get them to create a quantifiable number because they always say increase. And I'm like, well, that's great. We can increase it by one, but is that really a substantial increase? So pushing them to a quantifiable number and using that quantifiable number as that outcome. So it's typically an increase in diverse leadership, a reduction of talent acquisition costs, and which includes a increase in diverse talent in the diverse talent pool and a decrease in employee turnover.
Okay, so reduction in talent acquisition cost, subsection, diverse talent, and what was the second thing?
A decrease in employee turnover.
Okay. Okay. So perfect. All right. Great. Because these are all measurable, right? So
Mhm.
then is there like one more thing that they're typically looking for as far as like their goals?
Um, They typically have like DEI related goals, but that's something that I don't necessarily focus on because I like them to have a DEI strategy. If they don't, then that's something I can help them with. But sometimes they don't have the quantifiable goals, and that's something that I have to help them with. Regardless of what it is that they want, a lot of them don't have quantifiable goals with it. So that's another like really key pain point that I've run into where I really have to help them to quantify what it is that they're trying to actually achieve. But it's typically within that sphere of an increase in diverse leadership and different impacts that would lower talent acquisition costs.
So okay, that works. What about the psychologically safe piece? Is there like maybe I mean, I know you said you audit the individuals on the back end, but is there like a survey that the actual people who are on the receiving end of the ERG program are filling out, they're giving some feedback? Is there some way to measure what they're telling you about whether this is working or not?
Yeah, it would be a survey that they would complete, and they would. The way that I would like it to work is that they would complete it and it would come to me and not the organization first, and then I would be able to disseminate the information. Because what I don't, and I've explained, is like what I don't want them to do is to have it within the organization, and a lot of times they can tell like where it's coming from, who it's coming from, and then that causes anxiety for people who, like, I don't want them to know that this is how I truly feel and have to deal with the repercussions of that. So having a survey that they complete that I get, and then I give a summation of the responses to show them like, hey, here's where you have improved, here's how, where you haven't had any momentum, and here's, where you have some gaps or some things you need to address. So that's how I would measure the psychological safety.
Got you. So, okay, that works. And then during your audit, I'm assuming you're going to be assessing program efficiency. Um,
Yeah, trending against goals, looking at what worked, what didn't work, what they should stop, start, and continue doing for the program. Also looking at the actual support and resources that either they were promised to get, to see if they actually got that, and if that was enough for them to achieve their goals and initiatives.
okay, so support and resources that were promised, if they were received and sufficient. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna kind of go back down and niche a little bit further into the training for the DEI, or let's call them the HR DEI manager, right?
Hmm.
I'm just gonna put that for HR DEI manager, right? So let's say for that individual, how are they trained, right? Because are you measuring their ability to train, like their competency, their cultural? Because assuming are we assuming that this person is part of a diverse or marginalized group, or are we assuming that this person might not be? And if they are not, is there some kind of like core competency training that goes into it? Are they tested, assessed to some capacity as well?
So it really wouldn't be based necessarily on them. It's based off of the program. So my employee resource group program management certification course, that's the training that I suggest everyone takes, because that pretty much walks them through the why behind creating the program, how to set it up for success, giving them templates in the how-tos in order to take it, implement it, do any succession planning, any pre-planning for the following year, and then they will actually get a certificate of completion, meaning that they've gone through the whole course, and so they know how to actually be an employee resource group program manager. That's the training that I suggest these individuals go through. I do have other individual, just like leadership and onboarding trainers, or even train the trainers, but the certification course, that is really what will set them up for success, because they will be able to go through all of the steps that are needed and required to successfully scale and sustain an ERG program.
Right. So okay, so that is perfect. The how to implement the ERG program, and then certifies them and qualifies them to manage the program. So they're understanding how to actually provide the implementation, right? But what I'm
Yeah.
asking is competency. Like, is there, like, like, for example, if I was
There are
a
assessments within the
okay,
certification course. So like you have to actually, there's a quiz, there's actual things you have to do that will pertain to your ERG program that you would have to actually complete um, and submit for credit in order to get the certification. So it's not just you train, you learn everything. There is an assessment through that particular training.
this is
But other than that, it is. that's really what I would use as my baseline, because without having a foundational understanding of how to roll out and implement an ERG program, they can't really be that successful.
Okay, got you. Okay, no, I understand. No, that makes sense. But I'm again, I'm thinking of this from a measurable standpoint, right? Because I
Mhm.
could technically, if someone doesn't under, because okay, so remember, we're also competing against people's competency when they're reading something like this for your sake, right? So if I
Mhm.
don't understand anything about this, I want you to be positioned to be as clear as possible, so there's no confusion about like how you are actually measuring whether someone is qualified, because now you told me, you gave me more context. There's didactic work that they need to submit. There are assessments to be able to quantify and qualify whether or not someone is actually able to implement the program. But anyone could take a course technically if it was just the course. You see what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
that's why I wanted to be like, okay, there are assessments. And then now, and I'm going to leave this to you because I don't want you to give all your business away, right? But I would even go, so I'm going to make a note. I'm going to put one step down, all right? And then you can reference what I'm about to tell you now, and I'm going to highlight it. So when I send it to you, you know what I mean. I would even go one step down and talk about what the assessments within the course measure, so that you can, like for example, if someone were to take the course and then they had a quiz and then they did not pass the assessment, right, or they didn't complete the assessment correctly, what information gaps would you be able to see, right? Maybe they don't have, and I don't know what it is, because you know your course and I don't want you to say too much, but let's say it was like a cultural competency, that this section that they didn't pass, right? Like let's say it was like the SAT, like they didn't get their name right, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that. Like, so what are you assessing, and then kind of go down from there. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. So, and then even the didactic work, when they're turning something in, what are you basing their correctness on or incorrectness on? Like, what is the competency measurement? So, like, let's say they didn't answer this question correctly. This would allow you to know, or if they didn't answer these series of questions correctly, or they turned something in and it wasn't sufficient, how are you measuring sufficiency or completion of this thing? I would go one step down on that. All right.
Mhm.
So that's that. And I'm gonna leave that to you because again, I don't want you to give all your business online. All right. So I think that's proprietary. Okay, so that's great. So this is really already, you've already kind of built out most of it. You have your ERG, you have your HRDEI manager. They in phase one, they're being taught and trained and assessed on how to successfully implement an ERG program via your course, and they're certified, and that qualifies them to manage the ERG program. And then once you've already qualified this individual, next thing you're going to do based on the output is assess the company's goals. The company is going to ask you, the company is going to tell you the one of three goals is to determine, and this is just the three that we spoke about, right? That they either want to increase the diversity by whatever percentage, right? And then reduction in talent acquisition costs based on diverse talent and decrease in employee turnover, right? Turnover, just says overly over. And then for as far as the individuals who are going to be on the receiving end of the program, you're going to be assessing the efficiency of the program by by giving like a pre-program disclaimer about, they can give honest responses, they can tell you whether the program, how they feel about the workplace being psychologically, and I'm quoting that word because you're getting anecdotal evidence, right, about the efficiency of the workplace, or the safety of the workplace. And then you're going to do a post program survey as well, determining whether or not the program is working efficiently on both sides, what needs to start and stop, what's not working, support and resources that were promised to the individuals, and I'm assuming that's part of that survey as well, and if what they received were sufficient and or received at all. Okay, so
Mhm.
that's great. Now I would say, just to kind of niche it down a little bit more on certain pieces, so I would go into detail about training efficiency for phase two, about increase in diverse leadership, for example, I would get an audit of the current, I would create baseline information for all of these three things, right? You already have the
Yeah.
survey piece done. So let's just write baseline.
There's
So
for the road mapping services that are part of phase one, there is an assessment of the current state of their ERG, meaning like everything that is supposed to be there for a really robust and sustainable and successful program. That's what I measure against during the assessment. So whether or not they actually have a program with, mission, vision, connected to the organization, OKRs, KPIs, things like that. So I start with the baseline in the beginning, and then the audit and the assessment is 6 months for the new customers that come in, and I do this from the beginning, and then year audits after that to assess like based off of the baseline that we started with.
okay, that's a good point. Time. Okay. So all right, so you gathering um baseline information gathered in phase one, and then I'll make a note to detail findings, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's that. And then um okay, so then with baseline information, also I'm gonna make a note that get get data of current or mention. Let me say that instead, because you're already gathering that information, right? So when you're writing this narrative, you're gonna mention current leadership, current ratio or percentage, whatever percentage. So maybe there's for every one individual within that organization, like something like that, right? So percentage or ratio slash ratio and or percentage of diverse. Mention current ratio and or percentage of um, pre-assessed pre-assessed input versus versus goals outlined. Okay. So like for example, let's say their percentage of diverse leadership is 1%, but they tell you, so you're gonna assess they and so you're gonna mention that they have to tell you this has to be furnished, right? So they're gonna tell you they want to increase by 10%. Okay. So now you're going to say to them, and you can give an example of this in your impact statement for your framework, right? Like you can break this down. How I'm breaking this down for you, you can say this is organizational specific, right? Or this is based on the organization. So an increase in diverse leadership, for example, and you could put an example under that point and say phase one we established baseline information, and when baseline information is once we've gathered that baseline information, we can look at we create a ratio of this is one this is 1% versus your established goal of 17%, if the company says 17%, and then there's a difference of 16% and what that 16% would be, right? So they know how many people they technically have to hire in the leadership positions to meet that 16% difference. Does that make sense? So you
Mhm.
can give an example, because you're not going to use a real company to outline this, but you can give that example as an increase in diverse leadership that's company specific, because it is something that kind of is based on each company, right? And the
Yeah.
in reduction of talent acquisition cost, I would do the same thing. Use the baseline information that you've assessed in phase one, and then go to talk about diverse talent, how the companies qualify what diverse is, and then break down what their current turnover rates are, what they would like their turnover rates to be, and then look at the differences, and
Mhm.
then learn how, and then talk about the how many employees they have to actually keep on board and keep psychologically safe in order for them to meet that quota.
Mhm.
Are you okay, Sharita? Why do you look like you're about to cry, babe?
No, it's my reflection in my glasses. I
Oh,
swear, it's
okay.
not.
I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my
because
God,
it's just because I
please.
have the light on me, so
No.
it's just no. I swear,
Woo!
it's just a reflection in my glasses. I'm good.
I'm like, I can't take it today, Lord Father God.
No,
Do I
no,
gotta
no.
go
I'm
to
fine. No.
Arizona? I gotta go to Arizona? I gotta pull up on you, girl. Woo. All right, I'm sorry. And you know what? Maybe it's the thing from yesterday. That's probably why. Yeah, it looked
Yeah,
okay. It was a reflection from your glasses. I see it
yeah. No,
now.
I'm good.
Got you. Okay, good. Whew, girl, you scared me for a second. I'm not gonna lie. All right. My bad, y'all. It's my anxiety playing tricks on me. Okay, so do you get how I broke that down?
Yeah, I get that.
All right, cool, cool, cool. All right, so I'm gonna leave all these notes in here. So that's just part one. That's just goals and objectives. Okay, so you're gonna clearly. I said there was seven. Okay, there's
Sweet Jesus.
seven. All right. So
Wait, and this is for how much money? I swear this needs to be like a half a million.
one of the top one is $100,000. Okay.
Oh my God.
I know. I need this to be $1 million for all this work, right? But granted, okay, so granted, once you do this once, you don't have to do this again.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? This is why it's a
yeah.
skill, it's a muscle. We're just building this and then we're done, right? And then we might have to tweak a couple things depending, but you don't have to do this every single time.
Hmm.
So okay, so this is just part one as far as like goals and objectives. So clearly defining goals, objectives that describe desired outcomes and impacts of the intervention. That's part one. All right. Part two is indicators. Okay. So two is quantifiable measures or metrics that reflect changes or results expected from the interventions. Indicators should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. All right. So that's
Yeah,
why
so the smart goals.
yeah, smart goals. So I think that's really good that you mentioned the timelines earlier, right? So I'm just gonna say timelines. You'll know about
Mhm.
what it is. And I'll just make a note timelines as far as in reference to the number of times you um in reference to the number of touch points to assess efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So that's for you. That's one. So we already kind of created some metrics and measures. So we don't really have to touch too many of these things. That reflect changes or results expected from the intervention. All right, cool. Indicators should be specific. So we already kind of specified those.
Yeah.
Measurable, we specify measurable. Achievable now is where where it's gonna get a little bit interesting because then you're gonna have to collect more data about how often the companies um like about hiring practices, really, about
Yeah.
hiring
And
practices,
this
right?
is the way that it's probably going to work out is because the program goals are going to be connected to the organization OKRs and KPIs. Those are yearly, so typically speaking it's going to be a year goal for everybody. Unless they stretch it out, it's not going to be less than a year per customer, so I would probably leave it as the measurables are yearly bound. So from the time that the program is implemented, a year from that, we will be able to go back and see what the actual outcome was. Not that, I'm not checking in between, but to make sure that they are trending towards the goals. But it's typically going to be a year for everyone, just because if it's connected to the organization goals, those are yearly and they change typically every year. Sometimes they have like 3 to 5 year plans, but typically speaking, it's about a year.
Got you. No, that makes sense. That still fits within the framework because time bound, you can you just pretty much narrate what you just told me. Really.
Hmm.
That would still fit. Achievable though is going to be kind of tricky. Well, tricky in my mind. I could be wrong, but tricky in my mind because you're going to need data about, for example, like the example that I gave earlier, where they said they want to increase leadership by the proposed 17%. Do they have the budget to do that, right? So you'd have to be able to assess that information as well. So that's why achievable is kind of one of those things where it's like, what's the industry hiring practice? So you'd have to kind of outline that from an industry perspective, from a company wide perspective, and then from a budgetary perspective. How much money have they actually set aside to meet these goals? How, you know, that's going to impact whether you're able to achieve these goals or not, and whether the impact you're trying to make is actually going to work. Because if they're saying they're going to increase their diverse leadership by even 5%, but they don't set the money aside to hire those people, that's not happening.
Yeah, so the achievable is going to be a contingent variable for everyone, because even though we set out these goals, is specifically when it comes to hiring, there are always times where hiring freeze come on, and it's not like they um, knew when they started this process they were going to have a hiring freeze. It's because that's the way the economy works. So when I talk to that, I'm going to talk from a standpoint of, based off of these resources and funding availability, and contingency, this is how this can be achieved, but this is still a variable and contingent outcome based off of economics that sometimes are out of our control. So I think that's how I would leave that, because it can't be a set in stone type thing when it comes to these particular outcomes that are directly tied towards how the business runs. And sometimes stuff does get frozen, stuff does get cut, and that's kind of where it is.
Okay. So in that case, okay. So sorry. In that case, I would mention, um, okay, so for achievable for you, I would make mention that okay, so achievable. Make mention of all of the considerations needed to create a create a successful plan, right? So
Hmm.
assuming that the budgets are there, the hiring, they're going to be hiring, all those assumptions, right?
Yeah.
Um, so successful plan, right? However, you've conducted or you take into account confounds that are outside of, and you're gonna have to rephrase this to however that makes sense
Yeah.
for, yeah, outside of your control. Your
Yeah.
control
And that's
or
where like my 6-month audit comes into play. So
Mhm.
in case we are not trending towards some of our goals, we can shift and readjust. So if the talent acquisition part like is directly impacted because of a hiring freeze and budget cuts, then we could look towards adjusting the metrics to employee retention and job satisfaction for the people that are still there and what that looks like.
Okay, okay. So outside of your control, and this is also where the audits become integral.
Hmm.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. All right, so let's take a quick break. Does anybody have any questions about what's going on right now? Because this is still all applicable to you guys too. I'm just
Somebody asked how long in pages is this impact statement normally?
okay. So the impact statement that I dredged up was like 14 pages. Yeah. I'm not saying it has to be. I'm saying that if you have a lot of different like Sharita, okay. I don't know how to answer that question. Let me just be direct. I don't really know if there's the specific answer that they're looking for. They didn't give a page limit. They didn't give a word limit. So for them, I don't know. Um, and it's going to depend on your industry and the nature of your business. Are you measuring numerous factors, right? This is asking specifically about your DEI efforts because we're doing a DEI application. So I'm assuming if you're just talking about the outcomes that are related to your product and your service as far as DEI is concerned, I really don't see this going past 4 or 5 pages for real, because it's niched down to the one DEI thing. But it really depends on your business and what you're doing, how many variables you're measuring, how many indicators you use to measure your success. Um, yeah, it's gonna really depend, but I don't see this going past 5 pages just based on the DEI component that they're looking at. And if you find yourself going over 5 pages, maybe it's time to just kind of take out some fluff, but keep the meaty parts that matter. Are these SMART goals necessary for each section? Pretty much. Yeah, that's kind of the framework that they use. But this part 2 is specific to indicators though, right? So like when you're looking at the success of this project, what key pieces are you using to determine that this is measurable? Like what metrics are you using? Are you using for Sharita, it would be like a survey. That is a measurable metric that is going to spit out data and give her information about whether the program is psychologically safe or not based on anecdotal feedback, right? Or data. The smart one is good because, for example, someone might be overzealous and Sharita could say, oh yeah, we could implement this in 3 months, when really it looks like it's going to be more like a year because there are a lot of different moving parts, right? So I would use this framework really to answer your question, Jolina. Okay. All right. So, and how long pages is normal? How many parts is outline average impact statement? So about 7 parts. That's the baseline. 7. And again, it doesn't, all 7 are not like, so for example, with Sharita's, I kind of got ahead of myself and we end up actually answering most of these questions in part 1 anyway, right? We only kind of just answer the achievable part. The relevant part, I'm sure you could take care of that, Sharita.
Mm-hmm.
And time bound, we addressed time bound earlier as well. So there's going to be 7 pieces, but they're gonna kind of bleed into each other in a weird way because they all make up the total of what this impact statement is. What are the suggested outline part names? One of them is so the first one was goals and objectives. The second one we're working on now is indicators, and I'll tell you what they are as we go along. Okay. Ooh, sorry. All right. So, any other questions before we move on to the third one? And the third one is again going to kind of bleed into what we've already been talking about, and the fourth one, really. No other questions? Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Anyone confused, concerned? No, that might be a thing too. Definitely concerned. Okay, fair. Very fair. Um, okay, so what are your concerns? And let's see if we can address them. Maybe maybe I haven't considered what that concern might be, and then maybe we can address it here and then work it out in Sharita's, and then maybe you'll have that answered as well. I'm not sure if I should be writing about DEI based on my customers or future employees. That's a good question. Okay, that's a good point. So let's comb it, Sharita. I hope you don't mind if we just pause real quick, okay?
No, it's fine.
So I want to just go through the application requirements real quick, and let's look at what they want to know, right? Because that's really what matters at the end of the day. So our regional and thematic award recognizes and funds talented. Okay, maybe not. Let me go to the diversity and inclusion one. Okay, so we've created a diversity, equity, and inclusion award to encourage entrepreneurial solutions. So this is, I'm going to assume this is your customer, right? Designed to close gaps of access, outcome, or opportunity for communities that have been underrepresented or underserved. That could also be your employees too, because they're part of your community, right? Um, okay, let's look at some more information. Who should apply? The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award of the Cartier Women's Initiative is looking for business offering products or services designed to close gaps. Is okay. Is looking for business offering products or services designed to close gaps. So they're looking for the business side. So what are you doing for your customer? While the other regional and thematic awards of the Cartier Women Initiative focus on supporting women, it's open to all genders, embedded diversity, equity, and inclusion impact, the business should demonstrate that its main purpose is to work towards closing gaps of access, outcome, or opportunity for underserved, underrepresented communities. Okay. Underserved or underrepresented communities might vary according to geographies. These communities suffer from discrimination based on dimensions of diversity, such as age, gender, sexual orientation, abilities, mental and physical, ethnicity, geographic location, or religion. This list is not exhaustive. Gaps of access, outcome, or opportunity as they relate to level of income, income inequality are also eligible, but the applicant should seek to address they are related to existing discrimination based on internal dimensions of diversity. Otherwise, the business should be better fit for the regional awards. So, with that being said, what do you think, Jolina? Okay, she said I already have a lot written about this. Okay, so then you should be good then. I would say use their line of questioning to just frame how it is, what it is that you're saying if it doesn't have the context to what we're talking about, and then just build from there. Okay. All right. So it doesn't look like there was any other questions. So I'm gonna move on. Okay. I don't think so. Yeah. Okay. So then let's move on to data collection. That's number 3. All right. And we've already kind of talked about that. So a systemic approach to collecting relevant data to assess the impact that may involve surveys, interviews, focus groups, observation, and the use of existing data sources. So we already kind of covered that. So I don't even have to touch that again, right?
Yeah, no, because that's what I do right now. So with everything, so yeah.
All right. So number 4 is baseline and comparison groups. We kind of talked about that too with the baseline information that you gathered in phase 1, and then
Mhm.
mention the phase 2 part. Okay, so we already done that too. I told you a lot of it kind of just ends up happening by accident. So for those who are listening, baseline and comparison groups, establishing a baseline to measure changes by comparing the intervention group with the control or comparison group that did not receive the intervention. You, for Sharita, you don't have to necessarily do that. You could just use information that the company is suffering with already, right? Like they already
Mhm.
have high
Yeah.
turnover rates, they're already doing these, are already experiencing these pain points. So that's why you need to be able to make these changes. So a comparison group might not necessarily be necessary for you. This helps isolate the impact of the intervention from other factors. But
I
if
could
you
actually use data for that instead of actually having a compare group, just using the data that says like 30%, 36% of, sorry, organizations that have diverse, ethnically and culturally diverse leadership perform 30%, 36% more profitability than their industry peers. Like I could just use the data as a I
yeah,
can't, okay, I just lost the word. Yeah, I could just use the data as like the control group. Like this is what we're going against.
yeah. No, that's perfect. You took the words right out of my mouth. I would also, if you can source that information, also look, so you're the diverse leadership, but also talk about all of the factors, right?
Mhm.
The ones that the people that report the psychological unsafety, the diverse talent, turnover, all of it. Like support, give data for all of it, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, that's cool. All right. So data analysis is number 5. Analyzing the collected data using appropriate statistical and analytical methods to evaluate the impact of the intervention. Okay. So we kind of already talked about that too.
Hmm.
Appropriate statistical and analytical methods. And yours is probably going to be more analytical than statistical. So I would probably emphasize that. So I'm going to
Yeah.
highlight. Yeah. I'm going to
Yeah,
highlight.
because most of the data I'm using is the data already collected because there's not a lot of specific employee resource group data because that hasn't been collected. And that's what I'm working with like my partners with to start collecting that data so that we can have like industry baseline, industry standards, and industry trends. But for the most part, it's going to be more so analytical until years when we can do the stats. But right now, we don't have the data to do stats.
No, for sure. Okay, so that makes sense. So, I would mention that,
Hmm.
right? So mention that statistical that there isn't even the tools or whatever word you want to use. I'm trying to make things up at this moment.
Yeah.
There aren't even like the frameworks or measurable like ways to calculate capture this information statistically, and that's something that you plan on working towards. That would be great for them to know that, right?
Hmm.
And they might even, well, might, like some organizations would look into trying to support something like that. Oh, maybe you need some research funding, right? That's research versus talking about you have to use analytical methods to evaluate the impact of the intervention because there aren't statistical measures available, right? Or there aren't ways
Yeah.
to statistically measure it, but you're working on that. So some analytical methods that we could use. Let's look that up, right? All right. Okay, so yours would be, yeah, I think yours is prescriptive analysis.
Okay.
Um, Hold on a second. The question is, why did this happen using insight gained from statistical? No, so that's not you. Predictive analysis answers the question, what is most likely to happen by using patterns found in older data? Yeah, so predictive and prescriptive analysis. So predictive analysis is predictive analysis answers the question, what is most likely to happen, right? So you're going to be referencing historical data. So by using patterns found in older data as well as current events, right?
Hmm.
Analysts predict future events. So you're not going to say this is going to happen. You're saying this is likely to happen, or this is what companies experience when they aren't um, experiencing this, right? Or when they don't have an ERG program in place that's efficient and blah 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 blah, right?
Right.
So while there are no such thing as 100% accurate forecasting, the odds improve if the analysts have plenty of detailed information and discipline to research it thoroughly. So yours is so one of the analysis, um, one of the types of data analysis that you're going to be conducting is predictive analysis, using
Hmm.
historical data to make future assumptions, and then prescriptive analysis is to mix all the insights gained, excuse me, from the other data analysis type, predictive analysis, right? And you
Hmm.
have prescriptive analysis. Sometimes this issue can solve solely with one-time analysis and other. Okay, you know what? Let me actually look up something for quite a second. Prescriptive analysis. Yeah, okay. So prescriptive analysis is to use an advanced process and or tools to analyze data and content, to recommend the optimal course of action or strategy moving forward, right? So this would be where your audits and your assessments and all these things come into place.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to write down for your analytical methods, prescriptive and predictive. And then you'd have to expound on why you chose those two methods based on what we just talked about. Predictive, analytical methods, statistical methods not yet available, or not yet available. I'm gonna put not yet available, but you'll know what I mean. Okay, but planning on implementing or sourcing in the future to improve on ERG efforts, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So now number 6 is attribution. All right, assessing the extent to which observed changes can be attributed to the intervention, considering other external factors or confounding variables. Okay, so we kind of already done this too. If okay, so this is cool because you could really just say if this then that, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what this section is. If this then that. If this, that, comma, then that, right? Attributed to the intervention, considering external factors or confounding variables, which is what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about when we were saying make mention of all the considerations needed to create a successful plan. However, you can take into account confounds that are outside of your control, and that's where audits also become. You could also mention that you have some sort of plan for those variables, a plan for variables, but also auditing in described timelines to account for external factors. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, that's, you understand that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Any questions on the attribution?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. So, okay, no problem. So, does anyone else have questions on the attribution piece? Because I really just said if this, then that, but it really is saying it's asking you to assess with if you see when you see the changes happening, what is it that you've put into place that you can attribute to that change? So if this happens, then this will happen, or if this does not
Yeah.
happen, then this does not happen.
And the way that I can actually easily assess that from the standpoint of the program is that the program, the ERG program, the overarching program is going to be directly tied to those business outcomes. So the individual ERG initiatives and projects are what's going to bring those program goals to fruition. So if the projects and initiatives are successful, then they're not going to meet those goals. But if they are, then they're going to meet those goals, which have those measurable impacts. So we can directly tie the outcome to those initiatives and projects. So it's not arbitrary. There's a direct connection, and that's the way I set it up, is so that the program managers can show the executive team, C-suite, like, hey, these initiatives directly impacted this business outcome, and here's how it happened.
Right. No, that's perfect. Yeah, I would narrate that entire thing for attributions. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And you kind of just mentioned number 7, which is reporting and communication. You kind of just mentioned that. So
Yes. And that's
presenting,
part of the program is to is the program manager is going to present to leadership on a quarterly basis, whether or not that's a meeting, email, or something like that, what's going on with the projects towards those business outcome goals. And they have to have at least one annual meeting, like virtually or in person, with leadership to show what the outcomes were for the projects and initiatives. But they will be keeping them abreast of how things are trending and any type of gaps or issues or barriers that they're running into on a quarterly basis towards those goals. So that's how the communication and the reporting and the trending, all of that is going to be reported internally. And then again, with the audits, I can come in and say like, hey, make sure that here's something that you need to address, or here's something you need to make sure you have in your impact communication to leadership, so that either things can be changed, fixed, or adjusted, so that they actually trend towards the goal that they have as their objective.
Right. No, that makes sense. Okay. So that's perfect because it says presenting the findings and conclusions of the impact assessment in a clear and transparent manner, making it accessible to relevant stakeholders. So I would talk about what you just narrated and then also mention the what you guys are going to be talking about as well. So that's for them to report to stakeholders. And then also how reporting is conducted and how communication is captured as well. So like meetings with
Mhm.
minutes. You mentioned the in person or virtual for the HR DEI HR manager, but for you, like, do you guys? I would be detailed. Like
Okay.
meetings with minutes, follow ups, steps to take, like next steps, like those kind of things. You know what I mean? So that
Mhm.
there is like, accountability across the board because they're talking about like clear, transparent manner that's accessible. So, all right, we had this meeting, cool, we talked about it, but like you're getting an email with a follow up about what we talked about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with action items, steps, next steps, so that we know the next time we meet, did we meet those goals as well? You know what I
Right.
mean? Okay. Should I write that down for you?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Okay. Also, make mention of how you are going to capture the communications. So, meeting minutes, as well as follow up emails or follow up correspondences. Maybe even a pledge, right? Pledge where someone fought like they during that meeting they signed something that determines that they attended that meeting and like they are aware of the next steps or whatever, right? Pledge post meeting.
Yeah, typically with my follow up, the call to actions, I have responsible parties that are named, so they understand like this is your responsible. Like even if the action item is to make sure that something happens or that they are committed to X, Y, and Z, I usually designate a party so that it shows accountability and everyone knows like these people or this person's accountable for X, Y, and Z.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, that's actually wonderful. that that works because like, oh, I didn't know. Oh no, girl, you knew.
I learned
Right.
that I learned that CYA a long time ago, so I just always use it in everything.
Everything all the time. All right. So pledge post meetings, um, with with signature, um, with signature. Yeah. All right. So by following the framework, organizations, policy makers, and program managers can better understand outcomes and impacts of of their initiatives, identify areas for improvement, and make evidence-based decisions to maximize positive effects. That's that.
Hmm.
All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I enter all of this information into ChatGPT, if it'll spit me out a cute little narrative. Okay. I'm going to give it some context and then we'll go from there. All right. I am a program, and I'll extract a prompt for you too, so you can have it. Okay. I'm a program
Okay.
creator for organizations, or you can build on it if you need to. Organizations that need to implement a employee resource group for DEI initiatives, right? I am creating a ToC impact framework for phase 2 of my company based on the following information. Okay. So do you see what I mean when I say, well, not just you, but everyone else? Do you see what I say when you need background information to be able to give ChatGPT things to work with? Like you can't really just say, ChatGPT, do this for me. You have to give them context, and that's going to give you the best output for using ChatGPT. All right. It has to augment what you already know. That's going to be the most useful impact for it, not trying to get it to do the work for you. It's not as efficient that way. ToC is all of a sudden my brain wants to stop working. ToC is theories of change.
Isn't that the name of it? Okay.
Yeah, no, theories of change. Okay, so now
I usually ask ChatGPT if I want them to create something. I usually say, "Hey, I need to create X, Y, and Z. What do you need from me in order for you to create that?" And it usually tells me, and that's how I create the prompt.
yeah, very much. No, that does work. Okay, so we're gonna ask it to create a narrative for an impact framework that captures our company's efficiencies, our company's ability to measure inputs, and I'm using their words now, outputs and outcomes that contribute to my intended social impact. I'm just going to add the one thing at the top where it says I help organizations create psychologically safe workplaces. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so okay, there we go. I'll add it here. And then let's see what it spits out. All right. Okay. Interesting. It just kind of like consolidated what we did. All right. So but still helpful because I think it just kind of made it like like the bulleted format. So
Mm-hmm.
framework for phase 2 employee resource group program implementation goal. The goal of this impact framework is to extend our organization's reach and impact by creating a team to train and implement ERG program for organizations. By doing so, we aim to foster psychologically safe workplaces for marginalized groups. increase diverse leadership, reduce talent acquisition costs, decrease employee turnover, and ultimately contribute to creating more inclusive and equitable workplaces. Components of the framework. 1, team formation. Hire an ERG manager who will lead the training and implementation efforts. Collaborate with the DEI HR/HR to provide support and resources throughout the program. 2, ERG program course. Develop a comprehensive course that guides organizations on how to implement ERG programs efficiently. Create certification processes that qualifies participants to manage in an ERG within their organization. 3, assessments and didactic work. Conduct assessments to gather baseline information during phase 1, capturing the current ratio to percentage of pre-assessed inputs compared to outlined goals. Provide didactic work sessions to educate organizations on the importance and benefits of ERGs. Number 4, training efficiency. Measure the efficiency of the ERG program based on the goals set by each participating company. I would say participating individual probably. Track and evaluate the progress made by organizations in implementing the ERG program. 5, key impact indicators. Increase in diverse leadership. Measure the number or percentage of diverse leaders within organizations before and after implementing the ERG program. Bullet, reduction of talent acquisitions costs. Track the recruitment costs associated with attracting diverse talent before and after ERG implementation. Monitor changes in employee turnover rates, especially among marginalized groups, to assess the impact of the program. 6, surveys. Conduct pre-program and post-program surveys to capture feedback and assess the impact of the ERG program on the employees' perceptions of inclusivity and psychological safety. 7, program audit. Regularly evaluate the efficiency of the effectiveness of the ERG program. Identify areas that need improvement or adjustments, ensuring that promised support and resources are delivered sufficiently. 8, timelines and consideration. Establish clear outlines for assessing program efficiency and impact at specific touch points. Consider industry hiring practices and gathering data to understand the broader context and external factors that may influence outcomes. 9, communication and documentation. Capture communication related to ERG program implementation, including meeting minutes, follow-up, correspondences, and pledged commitment with responsible parties. Ensure that all parties involved sign and acknowledge their commitments to the program. 10, prescriptive and predictive analytic measures. Utilize existing analytical methods to measure inputs, outputs, and outcomes of the ERG program. Explore opportunities to incorporate statistical methods in the future to further enhance the effectiveness of ERG efforts. By implementing this impact framework, we aim to create a narrative that showcases our organization's ability to measure inputs, outputs, and outcomes of the ERG program through continuous auditing, effective communication, and data-driven analysis. We will ensure that our intended social impact of fostering psychological safe workplaces and promoting diversity and inclusion is achieved. You're gonna have to make that right.
Yeah.
No, you were gonna say what? Sorry.
No, I've said that's a lot, and I agree, Dr. AJ. Like it does sound very computer-like, so I would have to put it in my own voice. Yeah.
But this is just giving you the framework.
Yeah.
Right. So let's go ahead and copy that so you have that. I'm gonna put ChatGPT output. So you have that here, right? And then I'm gonna put ChatGPT input.
Yeah, but that's pretty much a concise synopsis of everything that I said. So
Perfect. So yeah, so Sharita, you're done.
with that part.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right, let me I'm just gonna put the prompts here for you. And then that's it. Okay, I like yours better. It's more human. Like that's funny. Okay, this is good. This is going on Patreon. ChatGPT is the GOAT. It really is. Spit that out in like 2 seconds. I did that like 30 minutes ago. Yeah. Okay. So we're done with Sharita's. As far as like the the stilts and the skeleton. But yeah. How do you feel about this? What are questions, comments, concerns?
I feel good about it. The way that I would, not the way I would, but the way I'm going to use it is that I'm going to take each section from that and put it into ChatGPT and add my tone and voice and add it to and ask it to detail it out so that each of those sections it has more detail, so that it will be like more robust and more information for them to read and go through. But definitely
Okay,
that's the
great.
framework. That's what you
Yeah,
use.
yeah,
And
perfect.
now that I have that, I can use that as, if anyone asks, I can use that as my compact impact statement. So if they're like, hey, what's your impact statement, like in a page or two, then I can just give them the concise version.
Perfect. Yeah, that actually, this was 2 pages. Yeah, yeah. So that works. Yeah, I would say also just include more like data, like examples and data too, when you're going through
Yeah.
like, yeah. Okay. So other than that, you're good to go. I'm really happy for you, Sharita. Here we go. All right, let me
Yeah.
email this to you real quick before my
Thank you.
flight.
I'm happy too because I was like, oh my God, there's so much. So, and like you said, it's building a muscle, but like when you're doing it, you're like, this lift is really heavy right here.
You understand? All right. So does anyone else have any questions about how this is gonna work out, how this is gonna look, how we're gonna break this down? Um, Let me go ahead and send this to you before I get distracted and start doing other things because I know my life and I want to set you up for failure. So here we're gonna do this. Where's my email address? There we go. Okay.
And did you send out information about the Patreon? Because I don't think I got it.
No, I didn't send anything out yet because I'm still kind of going back and forth about it. I'm like, I'm still thinking about what's going on, but I'm gonna come up with a decision before the weekend's over for
No, it's
sure.
fine. I just want to make sure I don't miss any more emails. That's all. I just want to make sure I don't miss any more emails.
You see, I'm gonna put VC ToC framework breakdown in the topic so you know what that is. Okay. All right. All right. All
And
right.
someone asked a question visually. Is there a specific format like a resume?
No, I would just say make it like uh just make it like really clean. Like you could break it down like like different sections. Like start with a paragraph, talk about like how, and then break down the different sections. So section one is this, section two is that, or this is how you want to measure part A with the goals and objectives. One and then two, just kind of break it down so it's formatted cleanly. But there's no real format. Or you could just do it where it's all paragraphs and then you just kind of bold the top where you are highlighting a specific section. Okay. All right. Where's the Word doc?
Am I out of the house seat now?
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry. Yes. Sorry, Sharita, you can go. Thank you for allowing us to thank you
Okay,
for being here
thanks.
with your beauty today. Thank you. Let me move this back to however this was before. Okay, there we go. All right. So all right, cool. All right. Sharita, if you could just confirm for me, dear, that you received that, that'd be wonderful. All right. Any other questions? That was section one. That was section what we just went over for anyone who's like just joining us or really confused about what the heck we were talking about. We were going through the Cartier application. They were asking for a statement or an impact statement or impact framework. And we just went through the impact framework using Sharita's company as an example. Impact frameworks pretty much ask you to really just talk about how you measure the success of what it is that you're doing, right? We're not going to, okay, thank you. Perfect. All right. So so remember when we talked about like quantifying everything? I'm just going to bring it back home, right? We talked about quantifying everything. We talk about not using certain words because they aren't quantifiable and there aren't really good ways of determining whether or not they're going to have an impact or not, or what impact they are going to make. People want to see numbers, okay? People want to see, well, these people, let me not say people in general. These people want to see numbers. They want to see conversions. They want to see measurements. They want to see, that's what they want to know, right? Have you made those considerations? And with that being said, that's what an impact statement essentially captures. Impact framework, I keep saying statement. Impact framework captures. Have you done your due diligence and understanding that when this happens, this is the result, okay? And how are you measuring that? Okay, how are you assessing the data? How are you collecting data? Who's responsible? Those kind of things, all right? This will be on Patreon this evening. I actually have like 2 other videos to upload there too, I think. I don't think I gave them to Emma yet. Oops. Okay, so yeah. So this is gonna be on Patreon today. This is the framework that you're gonna use to write this out if you're going to apply to this application. And honestly, this could be the framework that you use in your proposals, other narratives, your business plan. You could also talk about this framework in your pitch deck, right? If you have space in your pitch deck, slap that in there, right? How you like the succinct one that you don't have to like, you can listen again on YouTube. No, this is not on YouTube. This will not be on YouTube. This is just going to be on Patreon. This is going to be on Patreon. So, I was going to say that you can put this also in your pitch deck, and like Sharita, for example, that we just used. Thank you for letting us use your business as an example, by the way. You can slap this into your pitch deck, and you can have a page where is the pitch deck as a slide or as a linked document. It would be a slide. Just put one slide where you're talking about impact framework. Just put impact framework in like, I'm not telling you how to format it. You can kind of format it how you see fit or whatever fits your design, but you can put impact framework as the title or the overarching theme. And then you can like break down the different activities that you use to measure success, right? So you don't have to expound on it in all these different ways, but you can just kind of leave like little bullets or give like visuals if that's relevant to your business, on how you measure outcomes, because it shows that you do measure the outcome of what you're trying to do, okay? Sorry, I need to charge my computer. Okay. So this can be you can add this. I'm going to update the proposal that we do for the training. I'm going to update this so that it's included in the new proposal. Sharita, you can just add this to the proposal that we sent, right? Or that I sent you, I'm going to say 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now. Just add this section to it. And when you add it, remember to add it to the table of contents as well. All right. This is the same as showing them is this the same as showing them their ROI? No. This is usually specific outcomes for something that you're trying to do. Like, for example, this one is talking about social or environmental impact, right? This is not just ROI. ROI would be a function of looking at like your projections, right? Your financials will tell you what the ROI is going to be. If I'm looking at building an initiative and I'm saying that this is going to help a diverse group of individuals, or this is going to help benefit a diverse group of individuals in some way, or this is going to increase our marketing efforts, or this is going to help in some very specific niche way, that is what I'm measuring, how it's going to actually do what I think it's going to do. Not return on investment as far as like finances. If your impact if you can measure your impact financially, include that, of course. But you would be still talking about in the vein of that one particular thing, right? So for example, in DEI, if Sharita can find a way to qualify and quantify how there is a financial return on investment, like an actual monetary value that she can say companies who implement this program or this ERG program are likely to see a ROI of always a percentage, okay? ROI is always a percentage of 100% or 30% or 70%, 80% of their gross annual revenue or their whatever, then you can do that. If you know the monetary value, the exact monetary value or dollar value, you can say that too, right? For Sharita, it might be like, oh, they see on average this much more money or this less money or they spend this much less money in client acquisition costs or whatever the case may be. So you can talk about it from that sense, but I wouldn't talk about the overall company. I mean the grants ROI. Is this the same as showing them ROI? The grants ROI? I'm not sure I understand then. Larissa, girl, God bless you. God bless you, girl. Thank you. Dr. AJ, I'm not really sure I understand the question then. I thought I was answering that appropriately, but I guess I missed the mark on that one. Let me know what I'm not understanding. The grant, so if I'm understanding, there's 3 funding tiers for the grant. One of them is $100,000, $60,000, and $30,000. Third place wins $30,000. Second place wins $60,000. First place wins $100,000. Okay. Maybe that's what you were asking. I'm not sure. The ROI for investing in her business. I'm not sure I understand what's going on here, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. This question is just going over my head. The Patreon link is in my bio and it says replays. I think that's what it says. Or live replays or something like that. Let me see. Yeah. So help me understand the question because for some reason I'm like, it's not landing in my brain. I'm so sorry. Oh, it says live replays grant application walkthrough. And then Sheree said, when I give my testimony of getting the 100K while I cried completely. Y'all are a hoot. I literally can't. The outcomes that are supporting for investing in her business. The outcomes they are supporting for investing in her business. I don't know why I'm so lost. Help me. I feel like I'm not it's not landing. What am I missing? Is this like, I'm sorry, am I just not getting a joke or something? I'm so sorry, y'all. I think he means grant mission. Y'all, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happening. Maybe I'm not here today. Do you mean showing the ROI of Cartier to give? Oh, no. If that is the question, then no. This is okay, let me ask a question. Are you asking about ROI as it relates to the impact framework? That's question number 1. Dr. AJ. And you know what I also do? I also include the for the higher tier, I'll put the outline for the impact statement on there as well. That's what I'll do. The impact framework shows Cartier where their money is going. No, no. The impact framework just shows how your initiative is going to make a positive impact and how you're measuring the impact. It has nothing to do with the money that they're giving you, anything. They really can't technically ask you that, right? Because there's 3 funding tiers and you don't know which one you would apply for, right? Unless you're assuming that you only need a certain amount, right? So this has nothing to do with what you're not attributing anything to what they would give you or anything like that. This is okay. So let's say, for example, this is for diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're asking the product or service that you're building out. You're saying that it has impact in this DEI space. How are you measuring the impact that your product or service has in DEI, right? Has on DEI for a larger community or your consumer? That's what it's asking you. The return on investment is not, it's not a monetary outcome necessarily. There might be something you talk about as far as money, but it's still not in reference to money that they could possibly give you. It's going to be the return on investment if you implement a program or if you have a certain output, then, or you put a certain input in, one of the outputs could be a monetary gain or a return on investment of some sort. Like for every dollar that you put into the community, if you can measure how that will spit out $10, for example, that would be an ROI measure. But you would have to talk about that in terms of whatever initiative you're building out. Does that make sense? Still not what I mean. Not sure how to ask differently, but no worries. Can you get on real quick, Dr. AJ? Okay, let me see if I can add you. It will not let me add you as a guest. Could you request to come on? I don't know what it looks like on your end. Let me see something. This viewer does not have guest access. Why is that? How do we give you guest access? We're following each other. Let me see something. So I just Googled it and it said that TikTok is saying that it means that your account doesn't meet some type of criteria for accessing that feature. I don't know what that means. But yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure why. I didn't like turn anything off or anything like that. That's so weird. Because when I click on Sharita's name, I can ask her to go. I click on Jolina's name. I can ask her to come on, but it doesn't do it for Dr. AJ's. All right, Dr. AJ, DM me and we can kind of go from there. I saw that you DM me your email address. I didn't get a chance to respond to my DMs just yet, but I will. But DM me and I'll try to address it there. Okay. I'm on an iPad. Let me try a phone. Okay. See if that makes a difference. All right. So I don't know if you guys want to go through this real quick, but we also had to go through the UN Nation Sustainable Development Goals for one of the questions. I have time if you guys have time or you want to do this now. We said we were going to do it another day, but it's up to you. I'm good either way. What are your thoughts? No, it's still not letting me do it, Dr. AJ. We can. Okay. All right. So yeah, Dr. AJ, just DM me and we'll go from there, okay? I couldn't tell you because I'm not on that side of it and I don't know. Okay. So for example, so the question, it might be an Android thing. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. And I'm sorry, friends don't let friends use Androids. I'm gonna need you to get on this iPhone gang immediately, okay? And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. All right. So to what extent, so the question on the Cartier application asks, to what extent does your business address, I was on my iPad too, though. Oh, you're right. My bad. To what extent does your business address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, number 10? So specifically that goal, because there's like 17 goals. So number 10 is reduced inequality. So reduced inequality within and among countries. 10 target, 49 events, 39 publications, 915 actions. So I'm going to click on more info. If you go to the Cartier application, there's a link under that question. And that question is under the section where it says value proposition and DEI impact. And it is about the 1, 2, 3, 4th question down. And there's a link to that specific UN Sustainable Development Goal site. And then it will take you to where you are going to look. There's like a bunch of different numbers on the site. We're going to go to number 10. All right. So for number 10, it says reduce inequality within and among countries. Okay, the overview. Reduce inequalities within and among countries, target and indicators. All right. They have how many targets here? About, oh, okay. Let's see all of them. Oh no, that's not what I want. Okay. All right. So reduce inequality within and among countries. Pandemic has caused the first rise in between country income inequality in a generation. Change in between country income inequality. Migrants' deadliest year since 2017 for migrants. People have experienced discrimination on at least one of the grounds prohibited under international human rights laws. 1 in 5 people have experienced discrimination. Okay. Global refugee figure hit record high. War in Ukraine pushes the world total even higher. Number of refugees outside their country of origin increased by 44%. All right, so the Sustainable Development Goal Report 2022. All right, let's see. I don't know if this fits. That definitely could be relevant to you, Sharita. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so target number 1 for them is by 2030, progressively achieve and sustain income growth of the bottom 40% of the population at a rate higher than the national average. An indicator that growth is happening is the growth rates of household expenditure or income per capita among the bottom 40% of population and the total population. Okay. Target 2, do a search for an Ask GPT. Girl, that's funny. 2030, empower and promote social, economic, and political inclusion for all, irrespective of age, sex, disability, race, ethnic origin, religion, or economic or other status. The indicator that that goal is being met is proportion of people living below 50% of median income by sex, age, and persons with disabilities. All right, so Sharita, more specifically 10, but target 10.2. Okay. You could look at 10.2. Oh, no. I mean, well, yes. So you could talk about that from the employee standpoint, not the employer, not the corporation. You can talk about that from the employee standpoint, right? 10.3, ensure equal opportunity and reduce inequalities of outcome, including by eliminating discriminatory laws, policies, and practicing, promoting appropriate legislation, policies, and action in this regard. Okay, so an indicator of this target being met is proportion of population reporting having personally felt discriminated against or harassed within the 12 months. So Sharita, target 10.3 also related to you too. You can, under international human law rights, no, forget it. I take it back. Or do I take it back? Let's look at something real quick. Yes, this could fit for you, Sharita. I would, if I were you, I'm not telling you what to do. I would personally reference the Human Rights Act, specifically Article 14, and also make mention of 10.2 and 10.3. And I would also make mention of this in regard to the employees as well. Yeah. That's what I would do. All right. So 10.4 is adopt policies, especially fiscal, wage, and social protection policies, and progressively achieve greater equality. An indicator that that's happening is labor's share of GDP, redistributive impact of fiscal policy. I don't know who that would be relevant towards. 10.5 is improve the regulation and monitoring of global financial markets and institutions and strengthening the implementation of such regulations. Financial soundness indicators, definitely going to use that one myself. All right, 10.6, ensure enhanced representation and voice for developing countries in decision-making in global, international, economic, and financial institutions in order to deliver more effective, credible, accountable, and legitimate institutions. Yeah, an indicator is proportion of members and voting rights of developing countries in internal organizations. I don't even know what that means. Okay. And hopefully that relates to someone. So it looks like they're looking for increased representation in developing countries. So as far as economics and finances. So if that relates to you, then that could fit. All right. 10.7 is okay. 10.7 of their initiative is facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of well-planned and well-managed migration policies. If you have some sort of like travel, transportation, or something company, or something that helps people be mobile or migrate in some way, it could. I think this could even be part of like a moving company. I don't even think this has to be anything like an airline or something crazy like that. An indicator is recruitment costs borne by employee as a proportion of monthly income and earned in country of destination. Okay. Number of countries with migration policies and facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people. Yeah, that could be a transportation company. Number of people who died or appeared in these are indicators that this is working. This is meeting that you would be meeting this target. Number of people who died or disappeared in the process of migration towards an international destination. So that number would be reduced in some way, I'm assuming. Proportion of population who are refugees by country or origin. All right, so target 10A is to implement the principles of special and differential treatment for developing countries, in particular, least developed countries in accordance with World Trade Organization agreements. I don't know what World Trade Organization agreements are, but 10A1 indicator is proportion of tariff lines applied to imports from least developed countries and developing countries with zero tariffs. I don't know who that applies to. I can tell you. All right, encourage, 10B is encourage official development assistance and financial flows, including foreign direct investment to states where the need is greatest, in particular, least developed countries, African countries, small islands, developing states, and landlocked developing countries in accordance with national plans and programs. All right. Total resource flow for development by recipient and donor countries and type of flow, official development assistance, foreign direct investment, and other flows. Okay. By 2030, 10C is by 2030 reduce to less than 3% the transaction cost of migration remittances and eliminate remittance corridors with costs higher than 5%. Don't know what any of that means, okay? Remittance cost as a proportion of the amount remitted. That's the indicator. All right, so if you do not meet any of these, because I think these are super specific, like super specific, I would say leave it out. Don't try to force it, please. But if you want, I told you these were deep. Yeah, they are. Geez, you're right, Dr. AJ. Listen, if you feel like you want to do something in the future, you can make mention of it, talk about how your business could maybe expand at some time in the future or how you want to expand. I wouldn't say that you are doing this or this is what you do or how it could apply, but you can talk about the things that you intend on doing in the future or how your company plans on growing into any one of these targets, if it's appropriate. But if it's not, I would... One second, let me see something because there's another list. Okay. Yeah, no, it's the same thing. Excuse me. Okay. For this section, it says the company should broadly be contributing to goal 10, a collection of 17 global goals set by the UN, calls to reduce inequality within and among countries. It establishes different targets and indicators, among others, target 10.2 by 2030. Oh, so as an example. Okay. Yeah. I would say if this doesn't fit you, talk about which one could possibly fit you in the future, and if not, then just mention that it doesn't. I wouldn't really go too far with this one. All right. Any questions? Is there anything else that we should talk about? Because I think I knocked out today's and yesterday's. I mean Mondays. So UN sustainability, impact frameworks, got that covered. Just got to figure out the community thing. I have to add Dr. AJ to the list. And Dr. AJ, whenever you get a chance, let me know so I can answer that question for you. I'm going to add the impacts framework to the second tier. And I think that's it. I have to send you guys. I do have other things I need to send you. I'm going to get on those today. And that's it. Where do we find the whole list of 10? I could only find the infographic. Oh, okay. So when you go on the page, it's going to say overview. Also, like right under where it says goals 10, there's like a related topic that says something about Africa. And then overviews. And then like in the nav bar right over, it says targets and indicators, and then progress and information. You're going to go to target and indicators. That's the one that I was just reading off. Sorry. Yeah. And then the one that says progress and information, they give you information about how far some people, like it's statistics and information about some of the targets. If you don't see your target there, that's an opportunity. You know, when you mention your target, like the target that you could be contributing to, I would like, for example, my target isn't there, so I would say when I something along the lines of, I'm going to find a different way to narrate this, right? But I would say that when I went on the website, I looked and I saw in the progress and information that and no progress has been made with regard to target 10.5, right? And then I would kind of create an initiative about how they can start targeting in that area. So that's just a thought if your target isn't there. All right. Any questions? Okay. Yeah. So was there anything else on this application that we had to look at? We did total addressable market, competitive landscape analysis, sustainable business and financial model. I know some people, I know there's a little bit of back and forth about the projections. But Sharita, did you happen to reach out to the lady on LinkedIn? Not yet. I did connect, but haven't sent my message yet. Okay. All right. I think that's all I have for you guys today. Yeah, that's it. All right. So I think I'm going to bid you adieu. And we will reconvene with the next application. All right. Y'all be good. Y'all have fun with these impact frameworks. I hope this was helpful, and I will have everything up by tonight. I'm gonna go have lunch and then work on some of this stuff by tonight. Do you know what day? I don't know what day yet. No, I'm gonna meet with Emma tomorrow to see what day this week we're gonna do it. All right. Sounds great. Thanks a bunch. No problem. Thank you. No problem. Always, no problem. All right. So, all right, I'm out. Talk to you guys later.